Okay. Hello. Oh my God. Everybody hear me now? Can you hear me now? Here I am with music playing in the background and I'm talking while getting things set up and nobody hears anything. That's just pie on the face, if you might say so, right? How funny is that? All right. Do we have audio now? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. As you can tell, it's been a while since I've done a live stream. I was going to supposedly be in Kentucky last Saturday, being photographer. The other thing I do is photography, and I photographed my sister's wedding and lots of senior portraits for all three of my nieces and my daughter and friends and family and all sorts of stuff. And so we were going to go Friday. We got on the airplane, all packed, camera gear, 48-pound suitcase, under 50 pounds, ready to go. They had a hardware malfunction on the airplane, and so they had everybody deplane. And because it was a 3-day weekend, there was not a single flight anywhere that could get me from Portland to Cincinnati in time for the wedding the following day. So I did not go and photograph the wedding. I was at home. I was here, and I was very sad and didn't feel like doing a live stream, so I did not do a live stream. So I missed photographing my niece's wedding and felt horrible for not being able to be there. So that kind of ended up being a bust of a weekend. And it happens. If the plane it's one of those things where the captain goes, "Hi, everybody. We just fixed one problem and another one cropped up. And based on my experience, this is one that doesn't get fixed very quickly." And we sat there for 45 minutes before they go, "Okay, please, we're going to have you guys deplane, stand in line." So all 200 people standing in line to talk to 2 people at the front. So I got on my phone. I called the United, tried to find a flight. Because it was hardware, they could use any airline. They couldn't find a flight. So it was unfortunate. Didn't make it. Anyway, so how I started this live stream was like this. Hi, welcome to a new live stream. My name is John Skippy Limcool. Glad you guys are here. There's a new demo for Mega Magic Dreams. Sounds great. I'm going to play for a minute. So this is the first time since 2009 that I'm bringing out a library that works for a very specific synthesizer that only works on a specific computer operating system and in a specific platform sequencer-wise. And so I'm sorry to all of those of you that are on PCs or don't use Logic Pro X, because you won't be able to partake of this one. I'm working on libraries for other Ableton Live, and most things that I do are cross-platform. This is the first time I'm allowed, after almost 10 years, to do this. This is a synthesizer I love very much. I did factory voicing for the first version of Camel Audio. The very first patch when you call up Alchemy in Camel Audio was a patch called A Gnome in the Forest. And it was right... Where is it here? A Forest Gnome Dancing. This patch... This is how Alchemy used to start when you called it up. And Apple contacted me. They wanted to buy my patches, but they offered so little money, I said, no, thank you. I'm going to bring out my own library at some point, and I will put all of the patches that I made for Alchemy into this PowerPack. And so this library has all these Z patches. These are all patches that I did that are in various libraries that came out for Alchemy or else for the factory, the Smack Bass. If you remember, if you have, a lot of you have Alchemy. I have an email we'll cover in a minute where a customer asked a question that what the, like Baby Tiger Sleeping. Remember this one? I love. Here's the purr. The interface of Alchemy is like no other synth. This 8-box controller is the coolest thing on the planet because each one can literally be all of these different parameters set, and then it will morph between them. So we'll talk about Alchemy as we go through this, but these, all my factory patches for Alchemy, plus a whole bunch of new ones, and I'm still working on making the new ones. But I think new ones as well as older ones will be coming out. If you're not familiar with Alchemy, I'm going to give you a little brief overview. The PowerPack will come with a 30+ minute in-depth patch from scratch. All the knowledge and information you need to know about setting up everything in Alchemy. And it will be something if you own the PC version or the full version. If you own the PC version, send me a note and I will find a way to get just the video to you at a much lower price than the whole PowerPack or something. I'll figure that out. Maybe, oh, my voice is much louder than Alchemy. Okay, let me adjust that. So there we go. Bring this down. And there we go. Testing 1, 2. Get the volume to be about right. Test. Test. Okay. Thank you, Shane. It's good to have my musician engineer friends all here. You guys all can say things. Is that just Alchemy, or did you add things to the channel? No, this is just Alchemy. I make patches sound as good as I can, so. Oh, these are kits. Now, the kits are one of these things where it takes a while, even on the Mac version, because these are processed kits using some of the more advanced forms of synthesis inside of Alchemy. So even on a fast Mac, look at how long it takes to load one of these kits. So I put them at the very end of the list. I mean, you guys know, I program synths to, I have my own sound, I think, and when you play my patches compared to the other Alchemy patches, with all humility and everything, you can tell there's a difference. I will tell you this. I had here's the email question. Let's see here. It's still loading. Can you see it's still loading? It takes it this long because it's turning samples of drums into additive spectral synths that are then programmed in crazy ways to sound really cool. So but it takes a while. So I had an email that said, here, let me shrink this so we can read it together. Huge fan of your patch libraries. I seem to have accumulated quite a few over the last few years. Thank you. I am fortunate to have retained and still use a fully functional version of Alchemy on my Windows PC. I have Alchemy working. There, it's done. So we'll talk about what's going on in a minute. I have Alchemy working on my computer downstairs, my other Mac computer. I would love to be able to add to its library collection. Is there any chance of your upcoming PowerPack from Alchemy could be adapted to Windows? I have tried to load these patches, and these, I'm going to talk about something that's going to make you guys really sad, because in the past, when you say load source in Alchemy, all versions of Alchemy, the original from Camel Audio and so forth, they're blank. And they are not going to be blank anymore. I have pulled out over 200 sample maps that make programming. This is like the SoundSource browser in Omnisphere. They didn't include any of this inside of Alchemy. If you want to, you can go VA and you can choose different synth waveforms. But if you want to get samples and use samples across the keyboard, you have to import them. And so it stops a lot of people in their tracks that you have to go to this import audio window and you have to navigate and you have to remember to set this stuff up properly, and then you have to load it. And it takes time. While if I say Let's go synthesizers, and let's say I want to go to some sort of like big synth pads. If I want it to load it, I have to go through this importing process, and then it works. But there's never been a thing where you can say load source and say, oh, I want to go to the samples, and I want to go to, let's see, like this, and guitar. I just want a nice 6-string acoustic guitar, and boom. You can now work with it in cool ways. So we're pulling out a ton of stuff. We're also pulling out things and saving them in the additive format, because on top of the sample format, additive gives you the chance to like take all sorts of things, and these might take a little bit longer to load. But now it's in a cool, where you can get into the more complex synthesis, and we'll talk about this in a minute too. So the PowerPack, well, I'll talk about PowerPack. Anyway, I've tried to load these presets and these source files into Alchemy from Camel Audio. They will load into previous older versions of Alchemy in Logic Pro X. And you can tell older versions because when you go to File, I think it says Clear instead of Initialize. There's a thing you have to do when you load the patches, though, to make them work properly in older versions, and we'll talk about probably more when the library comes out. So in other words, I have tried, and the files are recognized, and you can select on them, and you can say load, and it doesn't do anything. So my guess is there's new things added in Alchemy. If you go to the effects and you go to reverb, there's now a convolution reverb, which has access to all of the convolution reverbs inside of the reverb that's inside of Logic Pro X. What's it called? Reverb Space Designer. This reverb here, Space Designer, has the same, if you go here, you have those same impulse responses here as you now have inside of a reverb inside of Alchemy. It's really cool. The other thing that's really cool with this convolution reverb is the size can go up to plus 500%. So it can take normal sounding reverbs and warp them to sound really, really cool really quickly. So I'm sorry, but it's only for Logic Pro X. It's ideally only if you're using Logic Pro X version 10.4.2. If you use an older version and you call these up, especially even just the Mega Magic Dreams patches, if you go to keys and like Safe Place or something, they click like this. It sounds like this. It sounds like the trigger is off. And there's a trigger button down below that you have to turn on. And then it works as expected. So older versions, you have to do a slight modification, then hit save to each patch. Otherwise, you will get it so that each time you call it up, it has this weird click because it's not re-triggering envelopes properly, because that setting used to be just a toggle here, and now they've made it so that it's got 3 settings. One for the effects off and one for voices on, I guess, in the other versions of Alchemy. But because it's now like this, it's not recognized properly with older versions, and so that's something you have to fix. Let me see what you guys are chatting about. Hey everyone, won't be commenting much today as I am on a plane flying to LA and then to Maui. Oh wow, cool Biggie. Lots of my favorite Alchemy patches are apparently from Skippy. Yeah, I love Alchemy, and they hired me to make patches, and I made over 30, I believe. So all these down here that are Z are patches, Retrotronic. Some of these might be new ones. Yeah, this is a new one. So let's talk about Alchemy. This is a synthesizer Came out by Camel Audio back in the day, and Camel Audio also had another synth called, I think, Chameleon 5000. And they took some of that Chameleon technology and they put that into Alchemy so that it could do some really cool things beyond just playing samples. Okay? So the layout is this. You have, when you call up Alchemy, it calls up on the browse page. And you can choose tags. You can scroll through the list of patches here. There's a ton of patches. In order for these libraries to work, you will need to go into Logic, to the sound library, to the library manager, and you will have to make sure that, oh, I'm incomplete, it says. So outdated. You want to make sure that they've added new things since last time I updated this not that long ago. You need to download all the Alchemy sound libraries. You need them all because we're using samples from all these different patches pulling out to the sources, and I'm using those for some of the patches that I'm making, okay? Let's do a quick refresh of the library because I've been playing around in there. So it's going to take it a minute. This refresh library is like hitting the little circle refresh. Since so many of you guys use Omnisphere, I'll reference Omnisphere as we go because there's similarities between the two in different places, and or else if it's Serum or whatever, I'll compare and we'll talk about it. But basically, you have 4 oscillators to C and D, and each one can be a sample. It can be a VA, which is their virtual analog. And here you have all those same waveforms that you saw over here. It has unison. It doesn't go up to 99 anymore. They stopped it at 16 voices of unison. It used to go up to like 99 voices of unison on the original Camel Audio. And then you have additive that you can turn on. The thing that's amazing with this, and one thing that I've said in my Facebook, the Plugin Guru page, that this is one of the most powerful synthesizers, because you could take something like, let's go. So this is just a sample. Oh, sugar's off here too. So, okay, you could go over here, turn on the additive engine, which is up to 500 or 600. It's very much like Razor. It's additive. You can have all sorts of other synth. And you have all sorts of other things like spread and okay, and you can also turn on the virtual analog synth. So I now have a stereo sample, which could be, if you hit edit, this could be a multi-map of as many samples as you want with different velocities that you make yourself. Unlike Omnisphere, you can make your own sample maps here. As well as that, you can have an additive synthesizer and a 16-voice unison in just the oscillator section before we've got into the filters and all that stuff. On top of that, they have 3 filters per oscillator here to work with to shape the sounds. And Camel Audio were no dummies. When they came over here to the filtering, you'll see that there's really nice, and the sound quality of the filter is great, and it's quite different. Let's see, let's turn some of this. Okay, if we make it nice and you go through these, the sound changes. Even from the same 12 dB filters. Here's 12 dB gritty. Crazy. And the 12 dB seems a little stronger than 12 dB to me. Now, if you want, like Omnisphere, you can right click and say add modulation. You have unlimited, I don't know what the number is, but it's way more than you'll ever use, of LFOs, but I only have 2. And what if you want to add new ones, right? How do you add new ones? I'll show you how to do that. Envelopes. This envelope looks weird because it's routed down here so that I can make envelopes and I can have each one of these patches be a completely different envelope setup. So like if I go over here, these are short. All the way to pad. And you can play this in real time and automate that, and it sounds great. Okay, if I right click on this and say add, and if I say new LFO, boom, new LFO. Go to the envelopes. If I want a new envelope, boom, I've added a new envelope. Now, unlike Omnisphere, when you add something, it doesn't give you 50% to it. It's at 0. So this envelope was added. Let's give it a shape. As I bring this up, and the envelopes here are wickedly fast and aggressive. Turn down my polyphony. I've got 9 voices of unison. Anyway, so there's so much power, it's not even funny. And then you get down to the other filter types. There's bit crushers. So this could be one of those 3 oscillators filters right here. If I wanted to, I could keep this as a low pass filter. I could go just this oscillator, turn on bit crush or comb or let's say FM. And on top of this, layer B could be load source. Because of the PowerPack, I can go to sources, to samples, and I have all sorts of synth samples. Let's see, open this and go down here to pads and gliss. And this could be doing completely different filtering. Another thing that's really cool with this synthesizer is that when you get to the ARP page, there is ARPs for all A, B, C, and D. So if you wanted to, I could go just to ARP for layer A, turn on A. Let's make this be kind of let's use, so if I do this, it's going to be kind of complicated, but if I make, I don't know if I have it working right. But anyway, you can get a pad with something doing an ARP on another oscillator. All those types of things are possible. So it's terribly powerful as far as on the synthesis scale, just to have 4 oscillators that each, I mean, I can take my computer down to where it's crying like crazy with just one sound, with just one note, if you want. So you have to be careful with the power. But there's the simple ADSR with a hold. There's multi-segment sequences. If you go to File, there's all sorts of presets. So if you wanted to, you could say pulsing 8th like that. And if I go over here and then I say, actually we want to bring this up, but if I say add modulation and I want to have this be multi-sequence 1. And is this working right? So then I would go down here to this. And now I have a pulsing envelope. And then I go to my performance and make sure that. So it's very easy to click and drag, change the shapes, save different presets. There's also a sequencer, which is able to do some really cool things. Envelope follower and mod maps. So you can have all of these different parameters here, your modulation sources. There's quite a few to choose from. changing a lot in the sounds. And when you get into some of these synthesizer patches that were made, some of these go into some cool places. I wonder what about CPU usage of Alchemy. It can be heavy, but no more than most other synthesizers for the most part. Remember, I'm doing a live stream in HD, so at the same time. This is a pad with unison virtual analog oscillators. If I was doing this in Omnisphere, I guarantee you it would take far more power. Well, we could test it out if we wanted to, but I don't find 2.5 to be as optimized as maybe it could be, in my opinion, and other people that I've talked to. We're making multis for Airwave Volume 3, and we're noticing it takes more power than it used to for making our multis. So we're concerned about that a little bit, but we're working through that. We'll get it there. But anyway, some of the stuff in Alchemy that is really fun is this. And it's fun to do this from scratch, importing in sounds. And this is something I'll show you a little bit of. We'll get more into this with this PowerPack video I'm going to produce. But when you go over here to loading and importing audio, you could click and drag. I could go over here, let's say to sample mass. I could go to plugin guru libraries real quick. Yeah. So if we go over here to Mega Magic Pads, for example, and actually from what I can tell, it doesn't even need the sample name at the end. It does an analysis of the samples. And you can just do this. Let me see here. If we say we want it to be sample based, and let's say we want to do something like, let me find something here that has some interesting motion, like Guitartronic, okay? And if we drag these over here and say import, it will analyze them and automatically map it. So this is one place where I've immediately jumped beyond Omnisphere in abilities because I just loaded 6 samples and it's not taking 6 different patches. And if I want, I can now go over here to close this, and the same filter works on this map that I just made. It's very nice. Very nice to work this way after working so long with having to deal with multiple patches for different samples. But there's other things you can do here beyond just this. So if you go to A and hit edit, let's go import audio, and let's import these same sounds, but this time let's say spectral. And I just go over here and I say import, and now it will analyze it, and it actually makes new files based on pulling the sounds apart on an additive synth layer. And when you do this to samples like this, it's kind of fun. When you do it to drum samples, it's insane. I'll show you that in a minute too, because we did a lot of that with the voicing when we first were working on Alchemy. Sample libraries. If I go over here to, let's say, here are my drum loops. We could go to there. We'll play with that in a minute. I think it'll do it. But now it sounds different, right? That's because we now have it in a spectral format. We can slow down the sample playback. Or speed it up. You can even go into the additive layers and you have volume, tune, pan, phase. If you go to the spectral, you can actually draw. Let me see if it's going to do it. Am I on the right page? So you can actually draw and modify harmonics. I think I need to say I'm on spectral. So you can modify. So it's taken the samples totally apart. And if instead of this, if you were to go import audio, let's see if we can do this to a drum loop. These are AIFF files. Let me listen real quick. Hello. Okay, so let's drag this over. Say import. And I think I kept it on. Yeah. So now it's a drum loop that's been put into spectral. And you can slow it down and then you modulate this with an LFO so that it... And then the LFO you set up to be synced to a whole measure. And then you set it to a pulse shape like... Oh, these are weird patterns. I gotta put this to 50. That's what I gotta do is, let's see, it goes to 100%. So if we set this to 50. There. I could say to 2 and half time it. So you can take samples and put them into places. And if you hear, it's playing chords. If I play multiple notes, well, it's not listening to this because it's based on the LFO speed here. So you can make vocoder things. It's very, very powerful synthesis. So that's part of the fun of this. The other part that's really fun, and I've spent some time to set it up, is when you get down here to all of the patches have the same basic, say we use like pipe dream stream. Yeah, we'll have to save with trigger on. Cool. All right, so what's fun with this is that I've spent the time to set up this performance. We should talk about effects for a second. So you have A, B, C, D oscillators. You can have separate effects to them. And then there's a main. And when you go to file to preset, I'm halfway through the process. There will be a ton of presets that you can call up that say what they will be. I put on purpose verbose definitions because just saying hit and wait, I mean, that doesn't help you a whole lot. Whereas thin distortion, that's using the multi-mode filter, EQ distortion, bypass, that's the band pass filter, and then mod. And then you click any one of these and you see here everything set up across the keyboard. If you want to have one of these things set to a knob, all you have to do is right click on any parameter in the synth engine on the OS pages anywhere and say I want to play with that. So I just say add modulation, perform, control 7. And now control 7, if I set this to full range, if I wanted this to do that and bring down, have this do also to 7 and have it work in the opposite direction. And I wanted to bring up resonance at the same time. So 7 for reverb, for resonance. You can do it. So I've taken the time to take each one of these and make cool variations. And if you call this up and you go, oh, that's too much, just bring this down. It's remembered that, so next time you cycle there, maybe you want this to be a little bit shorter decay. You can do that, it will remember it. Hit save, it's updated, it's done. If you want the ARP to be on, and then I have different presets. No, I don't have different presets. I do for one. I took the time to dial in completely this first patch right here at the beginning of the... It's just like other libraries that I've released where the Mega Magic Dreams, when it gets to the end and you get to where the Z is at the beginning of the name, that means these are the bonus patches. And at the very beginning, there's a basic starter synth. I don't know if I want the reverb to be that. Who is, now if you want to see what something is doing, you can click on this and say, I could see over here, performance, which is doing the reverb. I think I have it on one of the XYs. Yes. So this has not only these 8 knobs, but it has 2 XYs. So that XY pad, if I want to go XY pad for reverb mix, that should be like that, but I should be able to turn it off. Huh. I have to figure that out because I wanted to call up dry. Right now it's not calling up dry. I'll figure that out. But I do have on the performance that you can turn on the ARP. And as you go through, one thing I don't like with this is you can't change between, as you're changing this, I'm having it also change patterns. Because one thing in a performance you can have it do is change to different art patterns real time, which is cool. You can set record. So there's a lot of fun to have in here. And basically, on top of everything else, yes, Omnisphere 2.4 was like the pinnacle. I wish they get back to that point. Yeah, it is worse than 2.4. Hybrid synth ever. Yes. Some love for it. Yeah, that's just it. I mean, I'm sorry for those of you that can't join into this little celebration, but there's so much you can do with this synth that I wanted to... Oh, it's taking a minute to load something that's... When it gets to the more complex synth stuff, it takes it a little bit more time. Just wonderful filters. So this power pack will come also with all of the samples of Mega Magic Dreams. So all these really cool and you can go to the performance and play with this. Interesting that got turned off for everything. All right, so, oh, I know why. Because I had Taylor work on this. And he's on an older version, so that's what happened is trigger got turned off when he went through the last pass. Interesting. Okay, I understand. Because it should be when you get to these and you call these up, we now have tags. So you can see tags for everything. So it will follow the tag system that is built into Active Alchemy. But because he used an older version of Alchemy, it kind of changed this. So I need to go through each patch. This is what you have to do if you try to use this version. Well, maybe this will fix it so it works right on the... I'll have to go downstairs because I have an older version of Logic with Alchemy, and then this is the newest version of Logic with Alchemy. So I'm able to kind of test between the two to see, but... Save. See, without the trigger on, you get this. It's kind of cool because it re-triggers, but it clicks too. So you want to just go over here and set it to on, and I'll fix it so it doesn't click when we release it. Yep. I'm planning to release probably like Tuesday, Wednesday. Starting Friday, I'm going to have the once a year, 4-day biggest sale that I do of the year. And it's those only 4 days out of the entire year where everything at the site will be half off. It's not for the last 2 weeks. It's kind of funny that all these people are forgetting Black Friday is supposed to start Friday. And there's all these pre-Black Friday sales. And it's just crazy. Is the reverb a little tame? I don't have Alchemy itself, but it's how I think it sounds here. It has great options and sounds, but the reverb, well, there's 3 reverbs. So and these sounds here have the reverb built into them, but if we go to just the starter synth, right? So this is the acoustic reverb, which has lots of parameters for width, the room, you can gate. Let's do this. Let's clear modulations and clear modulations so I don't have to... Where is the other reverb coming from? Oh, I have Space Designer on it. Duh. Oh my God. Sorry. So you guys have been hearing it kind of weird. So that's what it is. Okay, I had Space Designer on this all the time. Sorry. I called up Space Designer earlier to show you it had the things as the... And since then, you've had Space Designer reverb on everything. So it will sound better. That's another pie on my face. Great. So when you call this up, yeah, it's totally dry. And then you can bring here. And that's a combination of reverb and chorus. And then you can mix between the two. It's killer reverb, actually, if you want to know the truth. And this isn't when, if you want to really, I mean, go over here, instead of turn this off, clear modulation, clear modulation. You can really shape the reverb in cool ways. Let's say load source. Let's load the acoustic guitar. Now the first thing you want to do, go over here to velocity. And go here to velocity. The one thing with Alchemy, and I told this to the guys when working on the voicing, I said, because Atmosphere was already out, and they were working on this synth, and I said, listen, you guys have an incredible synthesizer, but your samples, they lack. They don't come to, there's a bar that's been set in quality with the Hans Zimmer guitar libraries and so forth. And some sounds decay really weird. Other ones don't decay quite right. I might have synth settings on this right now too, so yeah. Now if you want, so there's one reverb. They have three. They have the classic, which is your most, it's like silver verb, it's cheap. Then they have the acoustic verb, which is very nice. And there's tons of presets, so you have all these. And so it's nice. One of the nicer reverbs in a synthesizer. And then convolution reverb, there's very few synthesizers that have convolution reverbs in them. You could say like a 3/6 Hall. And then take this to 500%. And the reverb goes all whack. The computer kind of freaks out for a second. So you can get some cool stuff. And what's amazing is this synth is worth hundreds of dollars by itself. And it's one of like 12 different synthesizers inside of Logic. It's almost unfair that they did such. I mean, the other synth that I hope to release a power pack for at some point is this one. I mean, this is so far off the scale of cool. Oh, it's really loud too. But it's a true physical model. It's got EQ bodies. It's got different types of shapes. So here's double bass. All sorts of super cool. So the synthesizers, and then they added all the new ones. They've got the new Mellotron, the vintage Mellotron, and all this kind of, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I've thought about bringing some of my libraries out for Ultra Beat, which I might do in the future. Sequencer and drum samples and all sorts of things. So, I mean, the cost of the ticket to own Logic Pro is worth it just because of the amazing quality of the synthesizers that come with it. There's no other sequencing package that comes even remotely close. I mean, this challenges the best of the synthesizers you can go out and buy, in my opinion, and it's part of a sequencing package. So, anyway, I will be bringing out the power pack for this a little bit later in the week, and it will contain a number of things. It's going to contain all of the Mega Magic Dreams patches. So, well, it sounds so nice without having reverb on it. I was noticing that reverb too, so it's, yeah, it's nice. Oh, I gotta turn on the trigger. And we're doing some new demos to show how cool this library is still to this point. This is the first library. So Omnisphere came out and you could only load one sample across the keyboard. And I was like, let's see, Sculpture. Yeah, Sculpture's amazing. Hey, Jason. I have the original iOS version. I'm just checking conversation here. Oh, yes. Your ears are much better. Yes. Yeah. It was reverb blanketing everything. So thank you for commenting on that and for me figuring out what was going on. The first Mega Magic Dreams is the first library for Omnisphere and the reason for that was because you could only have one sample across the keyboard. And I needed to figure out how you could have one sample across the keyboard. And when you played up high, it didn't just go boing and disappear. So I tried some tests by putting really long reverb on samples. And so this library has a whole bunch of stuff to it. It's one that kind of goes full spectrum between basses. The guitars and keys and bells are just, in my opinion, really golden. Once again, this has to be turned on. And again with this performance now. You can find all sorts of things in here. Pads. All the way to plucked. So there's all sorts of fun stuff. Per each one of these patches, they all do the same thing. So you make it become a slow pad. Once again, turn this on. It's cool without it, but I want trigger on. Save. So it comes with 106 samples, Mega Magic Dreams. It comes with all of the patches that I made for Camel Audio's Alchemy. As I showed at the beginning, that includes the gnome and all the others, a whole bunch of pads. The bug. All these were pads. No, Arcadia Awakening. This is a new one that I did. All sorts of places. So all the patches that I did for Alchemy are in this library, as well as there will be over 30 new patches beyond just the ones I did for the factory voicing. And then you get to the added bonus support stuff. The source, you can go load source, and there's both all of these maps, and they go all over the place. We pulled out all sorts of really fun stuff to play with. I wish it was faster to load them, but you still have to go load source and go to something and select it. But at least they load quicker than importing, and you're not just going through that import process all the time. You at least have a list to look through. You could take a patch that's existing. If we were to go through here and say we wanted to, let's say we were on one of the Mega Magic patches. I could go to B, I could say load source, and I could say, give me a cool bell. And be programming like you can on most synthesizers quickly. The difference being, because per oscillator you have filtering, you can warp them really easily to cool new places. And if you want, it's really easy to go add modulation and it's just really fun to have more control on a per oscillator basis with the sounds in that way. So it will come with all those sources to work with. If we initialize and we go to the load, let's go load sources on A, and we get into not the samples, but to the additive. This is where you get into really weird, this is no holds barred. Everything has to have its own sample spit out. So all of these spit out these AAZ files for things. And you can say like strange utterances. Let's see what that's like. So you can use that. And if you go over here to your spectral page, you have all sorts of synthesis modes to apply to this. So it's crazy. I'll be doing some drum loop vocoding patches to come with the libraries, all sorts of fun things. So if you're into programming and sound design, this is giving you some, there's no place else I can think of to get the sources unless you go to an existing patch. You know, if you go up here to like just one of the standard patches that comes with it. But in this case, like this, it's not granular. So how do you get the sound to be granular? You know, we'll talk about I'll show you there's some ways to do that in the PowerPack video that's going to come with this. So you get those sources, you get the video that I was talking about, and then on the effects, there will be 32 presets for effects. So it will definitely soup up Alchemy to get you quicker programming and all that kind of stuff. Oh, you're welcome. Is Alchemy made in categories about different music textures? If you go to the browse, you have different textures. You could say soundscapes. The other thing that's useful with this is that there are some really cool libraries. So if you go sound library, if you go to visions, this will blow your mind, truly blow your mind with some of these patches because there is so much. And what's fun, you can go to advanced and you can look at everything that's assigned to the controls. I mean, so there's some really cool stuff going on, and the different libraries are right here. So you could say, I just want the flex and flow. And there's a ton of stuff. So you can choose different categories. Modern synth will give you more. So I don't know, Ivor, if that's what you mean. You can choose different categories to choose over here if you want just the strings that are in this library. You know, and work from that direction if you want. And if you go to a different library, then it's going to show you, oh, there's no strings in this library. There's one. So cinematic should have some strings. So, right? So that's how the categorizing and finding things works as far as that goes. And more details, I'll do a little bit more stuff for the video I'm going to be doing. Any questions? MPEs and Poly Aftertouch, right? I have 3. Yeah. Okay, any questions? I'm about to wrap up. Yeah, it has lots of great sounds. I mean, again, if you, I'm not suggesting that you switch platforms and DAWs just for this one library. You know, don't do that. This is just support for this for people that own it, and it has some gaping holes. And one of the things I did as my prospectus when I started my company was I wanted to find places where there were gaps. You know, I found parts and made parts for Stylus RMX. You know, Absinthe was a complete, like, all the patches were designed for a different style of music than for Sprinkle on Top sound design for Filmscape type of things. Can you repeat everything slowly? I can't keep up. So, okay, slowly. PowerPack for Alchemy, new sounds. They are all grouped together in the M. Oh, let's see, I'm looking at a library, so let's go over here and say all. Otherwise, you won't see them. I can't get this to be a library over here. I wish I could. But starting in the M's, these are all the MMDR. And I'll tell you, it's not here, but I'm working on the MMP, which is Mega Magic Pads, which will be another library that I'll be bringing out. So you can choose. And they play great. There's additional patches here. So Dragon Warrior. This is one of the original factory patches using a drum loop. Right? So those are all, they're all here. Then under the load source, there are going to be 3 folders. One folder of additive crazy stuff. One sample map folder with all stuff. These are all from Alchemy patches. And just a small portion of the Alchemy patches. When I release Mega Magic Pads, it will come with even more volume 2 of samples. And then all of Mega Magic Dreams are available as a source as well. So, for example, say that you're working with Mega Magic, like Safe Place. Let's turn on trigger and save it. You could go to B, turn it on, load source, go to Mega Magic Dreams and say Glockenspiel, and let's load, where is it? Glockenverb. And I could take this, now let me see if I wanted to, if I hit edit, I don't think, yeah, to enable this, you need to import a sound in that spectral mode. So you would say import audio. I haven't done this yet, but yeah. So go import audio, but instead down here, instead of sample, you would say spectral or granular. And now when you import it, see, I'm telling you guys everything that's going to be in the video. I'm horrible at this kind of stuff when it comes to talk. I like to just share how it all works. Whoops. Let me turn this OS down because it's going to be really loud. I can tell. Turn this down. So I've drawn. So as you can see, you can modify a sample very quickly. Import audio. Let's do that again. It's got to clear out the old. You have parameters. Anyway, as you can see, I'm not going to get into this because this is what the PowerPack video is supposed to cover. But you can see you can do some crazy things. So you can do more with this than just play it as a sample. And it's not that hard to do, and it's fun. So lots of good things in the love category for Alchemy coming. Any questions? Due date next week, probably Wednesday. I know how you feel. I actually caught myself pricing a Mac laptop just to see what it would cost to play with Alchemy again. Yeah. Yeah. Alchemy has a lot to it. It has also, well, I'm not going to talk about this stuff, but you'll have to watch the video for the PowerPack, because there's ways to get all the stuff you've done in your ESX 24 days into new ground with Alchemy, because there's so much more you can do here synthesis-wise than you can with ESX 24. So that is what we are working on. We're also working on Airwave Volume 3. It is just, I don't even, it will do something that's never been done that I know of in Omnisphere before. Yeah, it's big. It's got some really cool stuff coming. So we have good stuff happening. I'm also working like crazy on really cool things for Signs of Life. We have Percussa 2 in the works. So lots of good stuff happening. And again, this coming Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday is the biggest sale of the year. And it's very strict. I don't like these sales a whole lot, but everybody does them, and I want to be in on the action. So we will be in on the action, but it's just for those days. I don't like, none of this pre-Black Friday sale stuff. That's silly. So it starts Friday, it goes till Monday, and then boom, it's done. Done for the year, and go back to focusing on making sounds. Keyscape, that's on the list. All right, thank you all. Any other questions? I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving too, by the way. Is Thanksgiving? Oh, yeah. So there's a video in my newsletter. You can go to YouTube and just search for it, but search for Eric Persing and Pedro. Really cool. Eric Persing, president of Spectrasonics. They did Omnisphere, all that kind of stuff. He did a really cool performance video with this amazing wind player that's played on, he's finishing Game of Thrones final season, I guess, and he's worked on some, just amazing things. Yeah, it was a really cool video he did. And he explains all sorts of really cool things in the second half of that video. So make sure you watch past the performance to see. He's got grand pianos playing from a Rhodes piano that's got a USB MIDI output on it. It's really inspiring stuff. Okay. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you guys soon. And safe Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family and all those that you have around you. I think I will be able to do a live stream next Saturday. So we'll be together for 1 hour, something like that. Okay? It's good to see you all. I missed you last week. Unfortunately, that turned out to be a bust for the trip. It's very sad to not go, but, it happens. But be well. Hi, Tim. So good to see you, my friend. Hi, Bernie. Good to see all you guys. Oh, shout outs. Shout out from where you are. Shout out from where you are in the world. Let's do our shout outs. I'll shout out. Woot. Oh, that's very nice. Camus, Arizona. Saxony, Germany. Andre, good to see you, man. Bavaria, Copenhagen. Thank you, JX. Dude, good to see you. LA. Ivar. Look at all these people. I love her. Bernie in the lowlands. He's in, you're not low. Is that what you call the lowlands? From Spain. Big E. He's up in the air, I think right? Thanks, Big E. Hug to you too. Here, big, it's Thanksgiving, right? So here, hug. Hug you all. You guys are family. And I love these times we get to hang out together. So be well. Thank you for all your support for, I won't even go into what I'm thinking, but you guys mean a lot. And so thank you. Keep rocking, keep learning. We'll keep bringing out new stuff. I gotta stop clapping. I like to clap. I'll see you later. Bye. Let's go here. Stop everything.